newsmakers.
Against the odds, Gordon Smith saved an Oregon business. And while politicians talk about higher taxes and more government, Gordon Smith wants to bring our Oregon traditions to Washington. A balanced budget, lower taxes, and more personal responsibility, integrity, independence. That's Gordon Smith.
Why some believe the government is out to get us, tonight at 6.
From ABC News. This Week with David Brinkley. Now from Washington, David Brinkley.
Washington is in a bitter argument about money. Nothing unusual about that, but this time it is politically high noon. The government is about to run out of money and the ability to borrow more. If so, it'll be unable to pay its debts, employees' salaries, and much more. Republicans have voted for a bailout to allow government to borrow more money, but they added some other stuff the president opposes, and so he threatens a veto. If it is not high noon, maybe it's the gunfight at the OK Corral. Somebody has to give, and soon. If not, government will run out of money and will have to shut down this coming week. Now, who will give in? We'll ask today's guests. Senator Bob Dole, Kansas, the Republican leader, candidate for president, and Robert Rubin, the Secretary of the Treasury, who has to deal with all of this and somehow get the money in and the bills paid. And with Cokie Roberts out today, our discussion here with Sam Donaldson, George Will, and John Cochran, all here on our This Week program. First, a little news. In Israel, hundreds joined Yitzhak Rabin's widow for a graveside ceremony marking the end of the Jewish seven-day mourning period. Today, a year before the next presidential election, a Time CNN poll shows President Clinton and Senator Bob Dole in a tight race. 48% for Clinton, 42% for Dole. Dole gained when Colin Powell dropped out. The White House and the Republicans are still unable to agree on what to put in the new federal budget and what to leave out. If there is a government shutdown, full or partial, it will come Monday at midnight. For years, political disputes like this current one have been settled by just spending more money, running up more debt, and promising without conviction that we'll pay it off sometime, somehow. But in the meantime, let us all get elected again before we have to do anything unpopular. That has been the rationale for so long that our debt now is $5 trillion. That's 5,000 billion, a 5 and 12 zeros. And the American people, as never before, are demanding that the politicians face up to this and deal with it. Again, it is something like high noon. Here's Michelle Norris. Michelle?
Or to retire
David, congressional Republicans and the White House have staked out their positions for a showdown to prove who really runs this town.
You're playing politics with their checkbooks.
We clearly have an inept Republican leadership.
We gave the president one continuing resolution. It was clean. Did that bring the White House to the negotiating table? No, they've done nothing.
Ironically, the standoff parallels the plot in President Clinton's favorite movie, High Noon. In the classic Western, the clock kept ticking closer and closer to the 12 o'clock deadline when a lone sheriff faced off against a band of ruthless outlaws. Republican leaders have cast themselves as the good guys in the budget battle.
We're going to walk out in the dusty street, and we're going to have a fight about the American dream. And every time the clock ticks closer to noon, they get more uptight about the fact that the fight is going to happen.
The problem, according to the White House, is that Republicans are not fighting fair.
Don't put a gun to the head of the president and the head of the country and say, you don't accept our priorities. You don't accept what we want to do to Medicare and Medicaid or what we want to do to education. We're going to blow you apart. That's a form of terrorism.
At issue here are budget deadlines. Unless President Clinton and Congress reach an agreement, the government's authority to spend money expires at midnight on Monday. All but essential government services would shut down.
Our main duty is to simply keep the government going.
Late this week, Congress passed two measures to help avoid a shutdown. A spending bill would keep the government running beyond the Monday deadline, and a separate bill would raise the federal debt ceiling to avoid the first U.S. government default in history. But here's the hitch. The measures are loaded up with Republican priorities that President Clinton finds unacceptable. His veto pen is at the ready.
Republicans in Congress have a responsibility to keep the government running without cutting Medicare and increasing premiums, without cutting education and undercutting the environment.
Beyond the Beltway, all this posturing seemed a bit, well, childish.
I think it's ridiculous that a country such as this is being run by what appears to be two little boys drawing a line in the sand.
One of them will blink first, and one of them will claim victory for the blinking. It's a game that they're both playing.
Neither side wants to see government services come to a screeching halt, but no one wants to give in and look weak. President Clinton, with his reputation for waffling on key issues, needs to show that he can stand firm. And Republicans with their eye on his job can't afford to flinch with an election less than 1 year from now.
After ribbing the president all year for vacillating, Republican leaders this time criticized Mr. Clinton for being too rigid, refusing to negotiate over the weekend.
I mean, he in effect said on the telephone, get lost. That was sort of the tone of it. But if we can't even talk to the President of the United States and we're the leaders of the Congress, how are we going to resolve this?
But White House aides say President Clinton is willing to talk, just not on the Republicans' terms. The White House believes it has the upper hand, in part because polls show that Mr. Clinton, with Powell now out of the race, would narrowly defeat Senator Dole in a two-man contest.
In many ways, the budget showdown is about so much more than money. The winner of this political battle will help set the stage for the all-out political war in the '96 elections. David?
Michelle, thank you. Coming next, the Secretary of the Treasury, Robert Rubin, whose job requires him to preside over these huge numbers and figure them out. In a moment.
This Week with David Brinkley. Brought to you by ADM, Supermarket to the World. And by GE. From aircraft engines to appliances, we bring good things to life.
This is the hand that turned on the light, that lit up the desk where the idea was born for a quieter jet engine that flew the technician who works at the power plant, which produces its energy far more efficiently as it lights up the city and powers the hospital with its life-saving images, where Sam was found healthy, in time for the game, held under the lights and broadcast to millions by a communication system designed with precision and shipped by powerful locomotives that passed by a factory that helped build a car with advanced thermoplastics that sits in the drive at the home of Patricia, who went to the fridge and got a drink for her dad, who works in the room where he turns out the light as he puts his young daughter to bed.
Every day, GE technology touches the lives of just about everybody.
Mr. Secretary, thanks for coming.
Very nice to be here, David.
You know everybody here, George, Sam.
You do indeed.
And I'm sure you have heard, as we have just seen during the last few seconds, the American people tend to think this business about the budget is kind of silly, childish. What would you say to them?
David, I think it's actually very serious, because I think what you have are two very different views as to what is right for the future of the country. The president believes in a balanced budget, but he does not believe in severe cuts in education, in environmental programs, severe cuts in Medicare, a virtual decimation of Medicaid, an increase in taxes on working Americans who earn less than $30,000 a year, all of which are in the Republican budget, all of which are unnecessary to reach balance, and the president is fully committed to balance. So I think you have a very important debate about what is right for the future of this country. And I think what should happen is that the Congress should fulfill its responsibility, put in place a clean debt limit increase that takes us beyond the budget process, a clean continuing resolution which provides temporary funding for the government so we can continue on a reasonable basis, get that away from the budget process, and then allow the debate to go on so that the American people can make a judgment. Which of these two visions for the future do they think is best for this country? And I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the American people are coalescing around the president's view with respect to what we must do for the future of our country.
On raising the spending limit, isn't that what we have been doing for years and years and years, running up a huge debt?
David, we have run up a huge debt. The federal debt quadrupled between 1980 and 1992. And then in 1993, President Clinton entered the Oval Office, and ever since then, we have had a substantial reduction of the deficit. I think without question, the President has been the leading figure in this country with respect to fiscal responsibility. But meeting those obligations, most of which were created in the period from 1980 to 1992, meeting those obligations is what the debt limit increase is about. That has absolutely nothing to do with deficit reduction. Deficit reduction is only accomplished through the budget process. And as I said a moment ago, the President is totally committed to a balanced budget, but he believes that we need to have a balanced budget along with vigorous programs in education, preserving Medicare and Medicaid, and the other items that we discussed a few moments ago.
One of the questions involved in this is the consequences of default. Would it cause a withdrawal of confidence from American government paper and an increase in the cost of borrowing? A premise of our civilization really is that markets are rational. And the markets over time, wouldn't they still say America's a strong economy, a strong government?
George, I think you're raising a critically important question. And the best answer to it may be the Standard & Poor's report that came out at the end of last week. Standard & Poor's, the leading credit rating agency in the world, came out at the end of last week and for the first time in its history commented on a debt limit impasse. What Standard & Poor's said is what we have been saying for the last 3 months, which is that default, or even the threat of default, creates a question about the integrity of this country with respect to meeting commitments, and that the cost of that will be with us for years and even decades to come. It is very much like an individual who allows his or her credit rating to be tarnished. It has effects for a long, long time.
But an individual has his credit rating tarnished is thought to be someone not wealthy, not backed by adequate capital. The United States is going to be the richest country in the world after this, no matter what.
Yeah, but this is a different problem, George. And this is the problem that Standard & Poor's spoke to in very strong language, that Alan Greenspan and Paul Volcker both wrote letters to the leadership about, and that 6 prior secretaries of the Treasury wrote a letter to the leadership about last week, which is a question mark about the integrity of this country with respect to meeting its commitments. And once you create that question mark, I think you really do have very serious long-term problems that you're creating.
Speaking of commitments, since the President said when he was a candidate in 1992 that the budget could be balanced and he was for balancing it in 5 years, he's gone to 10, 9, 8, and 7 years. Does the President believe the budget can be balanced in 7 years? And if he does, why doesn't he commit to that?
What the President has said, George, is that we must do what is right for the future of our economy, and that one of those things that must be done is balancing the budget. But the other are the things that I mentioned before to David. We must have vigorous programs in education. We must preserve Medicare. We must preserve Medicaid. We must have environmental protection and all the rest. When you put all of those together, what he did was to reach a budget that he thought was best in terms of increasing jobs, increasing standards of living, and meeting our other interests in this country. And that was the 10-year balanced budget, which now actually be 9 years based on the revision and assumptions.
But Speaker Gingrich said this morning that if you would sign on to the 7-year balanced budget concept, everything else would be negotiable. Isn't that a reasonable position?
Sam, that is not a position at all. What the Republican Congress has done is tried to put the President in a coerced position by having a debt limit increase, which is not, in fact, a debt limit increase at all, but is a shortcut to default, and by having temporary funding measure, which is tied in with an increase in Medicare rates. In other words, they're trying to coerce the President into signing a continuing resolution that has an increase in Medicare rates.
The Medicare rates and all that.
No, but what the President is saying is get the continuing resolution out of the way, get the debt ceiling out of the way, have them both clean, have a non-coercive environment, and then in the context of a non-coercive environment, as long as they recognize that he is firmly committed to his principles and take the actions that are necessary on their part to show that they recognize that, then he is prepared to sit down. Otherwise, you're not going to have an effective negotiation.
Let's talk about default. Tomorrow's regular auction of 3- and 6-month bills, over $29 billion. Will you cancel it? Will you proceed?
We have had to cancel the auctions. We canceled them last week, Sam. November 15th is the date that this country will be in default. We have a $25 billion interest payment due, unless the Treasury takes special actions.
All right. Will you take special action?
I have said all along that there are measures that we can take subject to resolving certain legal issues, and that those legal issues, or at least the principal legal issue, could only be resolved when you got right up against the debt default date, and you could look at it in the context of the then existent facts. We will work our way through November 15th, but it will be by taking extraordinary actions. These actions have substantial costs, and that's part of what the S&P, the Standard & Poor's report was about. And this is no way for a great country to manage its finances.
Will you disinvest trust funds, for instance?
What Congress should do is take the responsibility of increasing the debt limit, a clean increase.
But to take these extraordinary actions, what? You disinvest from trust funds.
We can disinvest from the Civil Service Trust Fund because that has a restoration of interest provision in it so that there will be nobody who will be disadvantaged by our so
you're going to do that?
Well, we haven't made a decision as precisely how we're going to do it, but that is one of our options. Another is something called the Thrift Fund, which also has a restoration of interest
Final question, if I may, Mr. Secretary. If, in fact, the vetoes come, it looks like the government's going to shut down, should the president cancel his trip to Japan?
Sam, I think that the trip to Japan is very important because the president has focused public and private sectors on Asia and the Pacific, and that's a very important area for the future of our country. What the balance is and what decision he should make, I'm not sure, but I do know that that trip is a very important trip in terms of continuing to focus.
Sounds like you would suggested he go.
No, Sam, I think it's a balance, but I'm just pointing out that our economy, we're very much tied up with our relations with the Pacific, and the president has very much promoted those relationships.
Mr. Secretary, so far as I know, nobody here is rich enough to argue with Standard & Poor's. But don't they know that this is a temporary phenomenon? It has happened before. We have survived it, and we will survive it again.
David, I really believe this is different, and I felt that way for some time, which is why I have been so strongly urging that we deal with this debt limit problem. Standard & Poor's came out on Thursday, I believe it was, with a report that's totally consistent with what I've been saying, because people are now talking about default, David, and that's something that people didn't used to talk about. It used to be jockeying. And what Standard & Poor's said in their report, it's very important to read that report, is that when a great country like this starts talking about default, that creates questions about our attitudes toward meeting commitments, our integrity with respect to meeting commitments, and just that question will have adverse effects, according to Standard & Poor's. Just that question will have adverse effects on the cost of money for this country for years and years and years to come.
Sam, we have a few seconds.
Well, a question to the future. Unemployment figures shot up last month. Consumer debt was reduced in September, which isn't good, I take it, for the Christmas merchandising season. What's ahead?
Sam, the last 3 years we have had a remarkably good economy. High growth, low inflation, and all the rest. I think that'll continue into next year, and I don't think any of that would have happened, although many factors involved, without the president's deficit reduction program of 1993. One other quick comment, if I may. We wouldn't be facing this impasse right now. At least at that, we might have been able to avoid it if Congress had gotten the work done on time, if the appropriations had been done and the budget had been done before the end of the fiscal year.
If the Republicans call this afternoon, as they say they might, ask the president to get together, will he do it?
I think what the president should do is two things. Number one, he should say, get these coercive elements out of the way, put in place a clean debt limit increase, put in place a clean current resolution, continuing resolution, and number two, recognize the principles and take the kinds of actions that show that you recognize that I, the president, will only agree to a budget.
So he won't shove his position.
Has vigorous education, Medicare, and
so he wouldn't move.
That's not moving. That gives you plenty of room to negotiate. He has been in a very willing mood with respect to negotiation, but it has to be in the context. It has to be in a context that recognizes his principles and avoids coercion. You cannot have an effective negotiation with coercion.
Just to set up we have even fewer seconds left.
Just to set up our next guest, you are saying to Senator Dole and others, it has to be a clean bill before the president will even talk to them.
I'm saying that the president cannot have an effective negotiation in a coercive atmosphere. And the responsible thing for Congress to do...
To my question?
And the responsible thing for Congress to do is to put in place a clean debt limit increase and a clean continuing resolution. And that they also have to recognize the principles that he thinks are absolutely essential to the future of this country.
Mr. Secretary, thank you. Sorry, our seconds finally have run out. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
David,
pleased
as always,
to have you.
it's very
Come
nice
again.
to be here.
Good luck with all of this.
Thank you.
Coming next, one of the Republican candidates for president left standing when General Powell withdrew, Senator Bob Dole of Kansas. In a moment.
There's a race going on in this country, and the stakes are high. It's a race to save one of America's most precious resources, our topsoil, from a disaster that could ultimately threaten the survival of our civilization. In just 100 years of deep plowing, half the topsoil in much of our most productive farmland has been blown or washed away, severely threatening our ability to grow the food we need. Today's farmers are gearing up for the race by turning from deep plowing to an innovative practice that reduces soil erosion as much as 92%. It's called no-till, and compared to conventional plowing, it saves labor, time, and fuel while preserving water quality and helping protect the environment. By adopting such practices now, we can save our topsoil for countless generations to come. And thanks to the American farmer, we're gaining ground every day.
When I had friends and family, I expected big savings. Mistake. I'm always on the move, and MCI didn't cover all my calling card calls. So I got AT&T True Reach Savings. It's the only way I save 25% on every type of call on my AT&T phone bill, anywhere in the U.S., no matter who I call.
AT&T True Reach Savings. Save 25% after spending just $25 a month.
I love a company that can keep up with me.
AT&T True Reach Savings. That's your true choice. AT&T.
Who sees life the way you see it? That's what makes us individuals. And the more we understand you, the more we can help. Whether you're thinking about a home or your future. And the more we know our client's business, the more solutions we bring to the table. For nearly 200 years, Chase has seen everyone as individuals, which makes every experience a more profitable one. Chase Manhattan. Profit from the experience.
Wednesday, it's shocking. A renowned fertility doctor accused of stealing eggs from patients and implanting them in others, giving away human embryos for experiments. For the first time, the doctor answers the tough questions on Primetime Wednesday.
Senator Dole, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Pleased to have you. Now, I noticed you came in with a portable telephone.
Well, just in case the president calls, I want to be ready. I've got one ready here, because I think seriously that we ought to have this discussion. And I respect what Secretary Rubin just said on the program, and he does a good job for the president. But I really believe unless we sit down together, we can't resolve this. And I do think, as you introduced, I think some of the American people think this is kind of silly. We're all adults, 3 of us, and why can't we meet? I mean, we're prepared to meet anytime, any place. And if they want us to agree to all these things before we meet, there's nothing to meet about.
So the president have the number of that phone so he can call you when he's ready?
Call me, yes, he can call, just call ABC and I'll call right back.
Put him right through.
Put him right through, yes.
I won't put it on the air because you might get all kinds of calls you don't want. But anyway, we wish you luck with it. Now tell me, how did you feel when the general withdrew and left you as the outstanding Republican candidate? There are others, yes, but you were way up front.
Well, the thing I really felt good about was the fact he said he was a Republican, because I agree with him. We need to broaden the base of our party, and that's been a goal of mine. So I felt good about the interview. I watched every minute of it. I kind of had a hunch the day before when he was making a speech somewhere in Boston, he probably wasn't going to run. But I didn't know precisely. So I'm very happy to have him in the Republican Party. He's a good friend. He's a man of integrity. We don't agree on all the issues. I think I'm probably more conservative, but I know I'm more conservative. But he'll be a good addition to our party.
If you were elected, would you appoint him to something?
Well, if I'm elected, certainly if Colin Powell is around and has an interest, I would say he'd be under serious consideration.
For what office would you guess?
Well, I think something like, you know, I can't say with any certainty, but certainly Secretary of State, something of that kind. He has all the experience, the knowledge, and respect around the world. He's an international figure. So whatever he does, he may decide he doesn't want to do anything in the political arena. He's already declined. He said he sought no office in '96. He didn't rule out the year 2000 and beyond. But he'll make a contribution, whatever he does. He'll make a difference in this country, whether it's in politics or in the private sector.
One last question. He's carefully said he was not interested in any elective office, an appointment to your cabinet if you win.
Right, that wouldn't be elective office, right. And there may be other possibilities, but I think it's up to General Powell. I talked to him briefly after his press conference that day. Told him I'd hoped I conducted myself properly. I'd never said a bad word about General Powell. And he said, oh, yes, you were a prince. But in any event, he wants to take it easy for a while. We'll see what happens.
George?
Before coming back to politics, I want to swerve back to the train wreck, so-called, or high noon, or whatever the metaphor du jour is about this budget mishap. If I heard Secretary Rubin correctly, he seemed to say the prerequisite for negotiations is a clean bill. Is it possible that the House or the Senate would agree to a clean bill? Well, without what they call these coercive measures?
Again, if the president would agree to a balanced budget within 7 years, which isn't very difficult, for a 5-year balanced budget when he was running, he's come down to a 9 or an 8-year balanced budget, then I think we could make very good progress. But Are you saying that that's your sine qua non, that if he'll agree to a 7-year? That's ours, mine and the Speaker's. We've talked about this at great length. And if he'd just say, if he'd call us up and say, okay, I'm ready to proceed with CBO numbers on a 7-year balanced budget.
You'll take off the extraneous.
We'll take off the extraneous. He could end it in 30 seconds. Now, on the CR, there might be some things we'd want to keep, but on the debt ceiling, which was, I might say, extended 6 times in 1990 when Chief of Staff Leon Panetta was running things for the Democrats in the House of Representatives. So to hear them indicate, oh, this is a terrible thing, they ought to go back and review the record.
When I came into ABC this morning, some thoughtful people, it says on the fax here, it comes from the White House, had sent over the following from you. 10 years ago to this day.
10 years ago, yes.
10 years ago, on the 12th of November, 1985, when the government was facing somewhat the same problem.
I was the majority leader in the Senate.
Correct. And you went on the Senate floor and you said, default would mean the full faith and credit of the U.S. government is not adequate security for holders of our obligations. If this occurs, obviously, it will have a destabilizing effect on financial markets and certainly result in long-term higher interest costs for the federal government. That's what Secretary Rubin is saying today.
Right. I think it's changed a bit since 1985, but I must say I've never wanted to load up debt ceilings. I think the CRs or something else, but having fought that battle...
So tell what the CRs are.
Well, it's a continuing resolution.
Yeah,
It keeps money coming in so you can keep open the government. Now, some people think we ought to shut it down, but I think that I'm not a shutdown advocate.
Well, the Republican position today is presumably that, in fact, a default would not raise the cost of borrowing because it would convince the markets that we're going to have a balanced budget.
We think the markets have changed. We think a lot of things have changed since 1985. We've talked to a lot of people on Wall Street. In fact, the bond market itself, has been pretty steady. What we want to do is balance the budget over 7 years. In fact, I brought a little chart along to show what would happen if you balance the budget. It's going to save you a lot of money. It'll save you about $1,200 a year on a $75,000 mortgage, save you about $900 on the life of a loan of $15,000 car. It'll save you about $1,200 on a tractor. I mean, interest rates are going to drop a couple of percentage points, and we think the American people want us to balance the budget.
Let's go back to avoiding the train wreck. Are you saying that he needs to sign on to the concept of a 7-year balanced budget, or does he need to sign on to your figures, your way of going?
If he signed on to our figures, there'd be nothing to negotiate. I think we ought, it's like Secretary Rubin said. I must say I'm a little taken aback because if they'll do A, B, C, D, and E, why, we'll sit down and talk to them. If we do A, B, C, and D, there's nothing to talk about. So my view is, let's sit down and talk about it. We're not going to agree on the whole budget. I talked to the president yesterday on the telephone and said, we ought to get together.
Are you going to call him then this afternoon and say, let's get together?
Well, I don't know whether you want to repeat it. He sort of, I don't say he hung up on us, but he obviously was pleased the conversation was over.
I mean, you don't think he wants to negotiate at all?
Well, I hope he does. I mean, my view is he should. I'm prepared, the Speaker's prepared, and I think the American people are prepared. I don't want to shut down the government. If the president wants to shut down, he's arguing over one little Medicare provision, which he says is a Medicare increase, which is not true. We're just going to keep it at the same level. And he's hanging everything on this one little provision. He's going to shut down the entire federal government because he thinks it'll be a little political gain for him with senior citizens.
Who wins? You say he thinks that.
Nobody wins.
But maybe you think that, too.
Nobody wins.
All right, now the Chief of Staff, Leon Panetta, says you and Mr. Gingrich are terrorists.
Yeah, well,
put a gun to the president's head,
we put
and
the
if he doesn't agree to that,
on the next
blow
CR.
his brains out.
Yeah. Well, Leon, Leon gets excited. I've known Leon. When he gets excited, he says a lot of things he probably regrets, but that's what his job is, to go out and make the best case for the president. You can't make much of a case. First it was Al Gore said we were right-wing extremists 3 weeks ago. Now Panetta's saying we're terrorists. I don't think that sells too well with most Americans.
Well, we know Panetta. He's been here a few times.
He's very fine. Man, used to be a Republican. Then when he turned Democrat, he gets a little edgy. I don't know what happened. Maybe he ought to take a look at our party again.
All right. We'll pursue this further. I need to interrupt briefly. We'll be back with more questions for Senator Dole in a moment.
From IBM. See and hear me at Radio Shack. Its roomy interior can accommodate 3,000 comfortably. It boasts advanced safety features, ergonomically designed control panels, and a superior ventilation system for cleaner air. Announcing Ford Motor Company's state-of-the-art assembly plants. All the enhancements we made for the people in here may be appreciated most by the people in here. Ford. Quality is job one.
This Week with David Brinkley will continue in a moment. After this from our ABC stations.
From the coast of California through Big Sky Country and back to New England. Climb aboard flagship Good Morning America as we celebrate America all this week on Good Morning America.
You know, a lot of people think that all Italian clothing is expensive. Well, that used to be the case, but now the Men's Warehouse has positioned one of our employees in Italy supervising the direct production of our Italian clothing. That's why we can offer quality Italian suits from $300. That's great value. I guarantee it.
Now open in Lloyd Center, lower level near Marshall's.
Mr. Dibble, you look like someone who'd like even this $1 million megabucks jackpot. No thanks. I'm already sitting on a gold mine. The Stick. It's a breakfast organizer, computer repair tool, pet fitness system.
Play megabucks, because $1 million is $1 million. For most people, anyway.
It's gonna be big out there. Big!
Does a Better Business Bureau work for you? Find out Monday at 5.
We're back with more questions for Senator Dole, who brought a telephone and has it there on his portable telephone, there on the table. He's waiting and hoping for a call from the White House. Let us know, will you?
If
George,
it comes
you
in, we'll all talk to the president.
Let's talk politics for a moment. In the Time magazine that's coming out tomorrow, there's a long interview with you, and you talk about a memo you received from Rick Smith, who's director of the Reagan Presidential Library. Rick is someone who really has my interests at heart, you say, and you say, I read his memo about once a week. In his memo, he says, you were a better candidate in 1988, yet somehow along the way, your authenticity has been sacrificed in the pursuit of ideological purity. Now, you're reading this memo once a week, saying you were a better candidate in 88. You lost in 88.
Yeah, that's the part I keep reading him. If I'm a better, well, I haven't won yet in 96, but that in itself, I think, is not what he's talking about, winning or losing. It's about Bob Dole and the Bob Dole that he worked with. And I think he sees a little bit, but he's not close to campaign, as he admits. That this is free advice. It's probably worth what it's cost me, but he is a friend of mine.
In 1992, the famous sign in the Clinton campaign was, it's the economy stupid. Is it the economy still, or is it cultural matters? I noticed that when Governor Merrill of New Hampshire endorsed you, he cited your Hollywood attack.
I think it's a combination. If it's still the economy, it's the balanced budget, it's reforming welfare, it's preserving Medicare, it's tax cuts for families with children. I mean, all these things, in my view, are both economic, but they're also in the cultural area. And our message has been pretty consistent. We have what we call the 3 R's, to rein in the government, to reconnect the government with values of people in Russell, Kansas, for example, and then to restore our appropriate place in the world. We've lost a lot of prestige around the world the last 30 months because we've sat on the sidelines and let United Nations people, Boutros Ghali, for example, decide when to involve us and what we should do.
Are you comfortable campaigning this year? I mean, a lot of people keep saying Bob Dole doesn't look happy. He's not comfortable. This isn't the old Bob Dole.
Oh, I'm very happy. I mean, I'd be happier if we were out of Congress, but it's pretty tough. But I don't regret it, being the majority leader during the week and on the weekends being the candidate. But if all you had to do is be a candidate, it'd be a lot more fun.
While we're making a tour of the magazines, the Sunday New York Times magazine today has your chief of staff, Sheila Burke, on the cover. It says the campaign to demonize Sheila Burke, and the New York Times says that the congenitally vicious conservatives have been beating up on her unjustifiably. Why are conservatives so unhappy about her, and would she be your chief of staff in the White House?
I certainly have made that judgment, but I think I'd probably want some with her skill, but also his political skills, which she does not have. Sheila Burke does a good job. She's a good, loyal staff member, been there for 17 years, trying to raise 3 small children. I think she has the respect of almost every senator, a lot of House members in both parties, but, you know, some people...
Why are they all after her?
I don't know. Well, maybe it's an attempt to get at me through staff. I mean, that's occurred to me, but some of the people who've been after her are pretty friendly to me, so it just indicates that we have an open office and we don't have to agree with everybody on everything.
You going to keep her?
Oh, certainly.
I mean, Paul Weyrich and the other conservatives who want her out, what do you say to them?
I say, well, Paul, I haven't checked your staff lately. I might find some fault. If I went over there with a microscope looking around at your staff, I might want to throw out some of your people.
Speaker Gingrich said today it was very, very unlikely that he would run for the presidency, that he'd jump into the race. But he left the door open. Do you think he will?
I don't know. It's up to Newt. I wish he, you know, if he'd like to get in, we'd go out together. You know, we'd go out to Iowa, New Hampshire. I'd introduce him, and he'd introduce me, and we could have a great time. But I don't...
We'd have a good time after the meetings are over. We have to
first have to wait for the president. The election may be over at the time we meet, but if Newt runs, he runs. I mean, it's up to him.
Well, Arianna Huffington, who is the wife of the man who lost the Senate race last year, has been very critical of you, and it's thought in this town that she speaks for Newt Gingrich, that when she writes, you hear Newt Gingrich in the background. She calls you too old. She says you are not the person who could lead the Republican Party to victory.
Do you think she speaks for Newt Gingrich?
I
said people in this town, do you think she does?
I don't know who she speaks for, but, you know, she speaks frequently.
Well, I take it you disagree with her assessment.
Well, obviously. I mean, I agree with her husband. I went on campaign for him, and she was there and thought I did a great job. I wasn't all those things then, but I think she has another candidate. She certainly was strong for General Powell. He's out of the race. Bill Kristol was strong for General Powell. He's out of the race. Bill Bennett. They keep looking for a horse. Now, maybe somebody will straggle along here. Maybe.
Well, they seem to think there's something wrong with this horse.
Well, I think they may take another look, hopefully, and I'd be happy to visit with Arianna Huffington or, you know, by letter.
Okay. Play out the nominating process as you see it, and then the fall election. What happens now? How do you become the nominee? Who Phil Gramm gets, what, blown out in New Hampshire? Give us the scenario.
Well, I don't know, but we've had an extremely good week this past week. Governor Merrill of New Hampshire endorsed me, Governor Ridge of Pennsylvania, and then General Powell left the race. It sort of put it back. We have a now finite number of candidates. I think this Florida straw poll, whether you agree or not, is going to be very important. I hope I can win that. We're not certain of that. But it's going to demonstrate who has the organization, who can turn people out. That's on the 18th of November, a week from Saturday. So that'll be important. That's the last big event of this year. And it depends on whether we get our work done. If we get a balanced budget and the president will come along with us, that's going to be very helpful to Bob Dole and all other Republicans, but particularly somebody in the leadership.
Well, you know, there's a perception that you've had to watch and listen to that you've now begun to be Mr. Flip-Flop. The log cabin Republican incident, of course,
Right.
was an example.
Well, that was a mistake. I think we made we made a mistake, but you're entitled to make one mistake.
Well, you blame the campaign
I'm
staff.
opposed to discrimination. Always have been. Always will be. And you know, but that's a very it's major to some, but it's not a big mistake.
On a matter of public business, the President in September more or less clearly endorsed the Senate version of the welfare bill. Is it your impression that what is going to come out of the conference will be close enough to the Senate version that he is committed to signing it?
It's quite close to the Senate version. I think it's a very good bill. It's going to end welfare, 5 years of eligibility if you're able-bodied. You're going to have to work. We've discovered work works. Going to turn it back to the states, back to the governors.
Since then, there however been much publicity over a government report purporting to show that even the Senate bill would push 1.2 million children into poverty. Are you familiar with the report? And
I'm familiar with the report. I've listened to Senator Moynihan, who I have a lot of respect for in this area. I think he will like our final product. I'd hope Senator Moynihan would vote for it. We've been very careful in the conference, and I've been there almost daily. As far as child care and a lot of the other things, of much concern to the governors, Democrats and Republican governors. But I think the key thing is giving it back to the states. We think they can do a better job for the people who need welfare. And we're not certain. Studies are studies. We can probably find another study who will say just the opposite. So we shouldn't be bound by someone's study. If it doesn't work, it's only a 5-year program. We can change the law anytime.
The time is getting short, and your telephone has not rung.
Not yet. I'm still waiting.
The president offered to send Leon Panetta to talk to you, didn't he? And didn't you turn him down?
Well, Leon's a friend of ours,
Well, of
but
course,
we thought the principals ought to talk to principals. Then he said, well, we got to send the Democrats along. Well, this is a dispute between the Republican leadership and the President of the United States.
The president may not phone, but what's your advice to him about going to Japan? Should he cancel his trip if, in fact, he vetoes those resolutions and you don't give in?
Well, in my view, it's probably a very important trip. I don't want the president to cancel it, but I don't think he has any choice if we haven't come to some agreement. He is the president of the United States. He should be the leader. We shouldn't have Newt Gingrich and Bob Dole calling the president. The president ought to be calling us. That's called leadership. He ought to take the initiative. But he's got a fellow down there named Dick Morris who tells him what to do these days. And he said, oh, don't make any deal, don't flinch, don't do anything. Because you might score a political point.
Well, politically, the president needs to demonstrate he's got some backbone. I mean, one of the raps on him all during his presidency is that he doesn't stand and fight, that he runs at the first cold breeze from the north.
He's willing to shut down the government over a non-issue. If he's willing, that's not leadership, shutting down the government, inconvenience millions of people in this country, and he ought to talk to us. He's the big guy in town. We're just down here somewhere. You know, he's the big guy, and if the big guy calls, we'll show up. And this is the chart. You just close it off. With our budget, the Clinton budget, you never get a balanced budget. With our budget, you get a balanced budget by the year 2002. 80-some% of the American people want a balanced budget.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Senator, for coming.
And I'll take my phone with me, too.
Take them with you. You can use them again and take the phone, too. Maybe he'll
have
call
a
you.
battery in it?
No, we forgot to put batteries in, so I knew he wouldn't call anyway.
Are you sure he has the number?
He's got my number.
Okay, fine. Thanks very much. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Coming next, our discussion here among ourselves and our guests, no outsiders, no politicians. And joining us will be ABC News' John Cochran. In a moment.
As the official airline of the 1996 Olympic Games, Delta has created an event just for business travelers, the International Dash. With 4,900 daily flights to 300 cities, we'll fly you to the business world with a schedule that's as full as yours. And we don't do it so we can finish first. We do it so you can. Delta Airlines.
This GE compact fluorescent bulb gives you soft, warm light.
Take the ball, Jamie.
It's an energy-efficient bulb that lasts year after year.
Hit the ball, Jamie.
Up to 9,000 hours longer than an ordinary bulb.
Outside with the ball, Jamie.
So it won't need to be changed for about 7 years.
Hey, Jamie, how many grown-ups does it take to change a light bulb? Change a light bulb? Why would anybody need to change a light bulb?
The revolutionary GE compact fluorescent bulb.
Every year, the importance of this land increases because every year there are a lot more mouths to feed. Over 95 million more, a figure greater than the population of Mexico. Fortunately, the food ingredients that Archer Daniels Midland makes from America's harvests can help feed people the world over. Food ingredients such as flour, protein, vegetable oils, and corn sweeteners. Making food and feed ingredients to meet our growing nutritional needs. That's why ADM is supermarket to the world.
Gentlemen, I smell business opportunity somewhere.
Where? By the time these guys notice how much opportunity the sports and entertainment industry holds.
This way? I don't know.
The most exciting opportunity of all.
That way?
Maybe. Will be gone.
This way?
That way.
Because Madison Square Garden is already part of ITT. Oh. For 75 years, ITT, the one to follow.
Suppose I were to offer you $1 million for one night with your wife.
An impossible question.
David, I think you want me to do it.
Why do you want to do it?
An unthinkable notion. But will she do it? Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson, and Robert Redford in the network premiere of Indecent Proposal, Sunday. They thought they had seen it all, that nothing could affect their job, until a horrific crime hits too close to home and sends Andy over the edge.
I'm working this case. If you don't like it, you can get off.
An all-new Blue, Tuesday. Viewer discretion advised.
We're here and contemplating the fact that the U.S. government is threatened with a shutdown, simply shutting down the government at midnight Monday. And some of our listeners we've heard from think it's perfectly silly, childish, nonsensical. Is that a fair description, George?
No, I think Secretary Rubin's got it exactly right. They're competing visions of what government ought to be and what the future ought to be and how you get there. And these are serious people fighting over it. I don't think it's childish at all.
Well, you know, the Secretary Rubin and the President say it's high noon, but it's not really high noon. I mean, the government shuts down Monday night. It's just some partial shutdown. All the safety regulations are in place. The police are in place. The air traffic controllers are in place. Federal employees who aren't paid will get retroactive money. It's not a real thing. Social Security checks go out. And on Wednesday, Secretary Rubin has made clear that if the debt ceiling has not been raised, he has ways to get by that. We will not default on the obligations of the United States. High noon probably won't come until December if they insist on pushing it.
Well, in high noon, the last line, all I can remember of it is the last line of the tune, which is something about shoot Frank Miller dead. Is that the last?
He's the outlaw, right?
Yeah, right. So we're not going to do anything like that. John, come in. John Cochran.
Well, David, George is right. This is serious, but I'll tell you, I escaped from Beltway yesterday. I was down in Alabama, and I bored the pants off people who wanted to talk about important things like the upcoming Alabama-Auburn game, and I asked them about this, and they're just annoyed by it. Now, these are people, it's still ABC country down there, anybody but Clinton. They're very much against him still, but they're very disappointed in Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich. They thought things were going to be different with the Republican Congress. They do not see this as high noon. They think it's an old rerun of the Three Stooges. And it is not funny, but people are, it has harmed them, and I think the Republicans know that, and that's why Bill Clinton did not call Bob Dole here. He's not going to call him later this afternoon. It's why Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich are probably going to call the president later this afternoon.
Whom do they want? Don't like Clinton, don't like Dole. Whom do they want?
They want people to conduct business in an orderly fashion. They expect Congress, at the very least, not to be annoying.
But these are the very people in Alabama, good, solid Americans, who for years have been saying we don't want government done in the normal way. We want to actually decide things and force things to closure. If the president casts his vetoes, and I expect he will, he's going to veto a balanced budget. I expect, will veto the end of welfare reform as we know it, and I don't see how that's a winning position for him. I think that, let me just say this about, and John, you can tell us what's happening up on the Hill. Watch the welfare reform bill. He endorsed the Senate bill, something very much like the Senate bill is coming out. Pat Moynihan forced the administration to acknowledge that they had a study saying it would shove 1.2 million people children into poverty. Now, here you have the president ready to sign a bill that penalizes children by his own standards. I don't take a stand on whether that's true or not, yet standing up and fighting over restraints in Medicare spending because children don't vote and the elderly vote.
Well, but
that's
the position, George. I mean, he's vetoing something that's very politically popular from the standpoint of the way his action would occur. I mean, the Republicans have it right in the long run. The only way to reduce the government deficit is to reduce these programs, including the so-called entitlements. But by forcing the president to the wall, and Panetta using that gun-to-the-head analogy, it's very popular in the country to say, my goodness, we can't do it right now. But you know the old phrase, if not now, when? If not here, where? And if not with these people, who? Was that the rest of the phrase?
Well, that's something like it. They're very hard questions, and what are the answers, Sam?
Yes, but always in the past, David, it comes down to it and compromises are made, but it is business as usual after that. You can't point to a government shutdown, which really has resulted in a profound change in the way the government, including the presidency, as well as the Congress, done business.
Well, they may not like him in Alabama, but the rest of the country may look at Bill Clinton and decide they do like this new, decisive Bill Clinton. I'm not really sure that America is really psychologically ready for that yet, but he may come out of this looking tougher. But if, in fact, he goes and vetoes welfare reform, then he moves off to the left again. And his advisors are saying, stay in the center.
And if he doesn't veto welfare reform, he may get Jesse Jackson running against him as an independent candidate.
Is it possible for a president to oppose welfare reform, oppose cuts in Medicare and so on, and be reelected? Is it possible?
Well, it depends on what you're opposing. If you oppose welfare reform in its present, as George says, he signed on to it, but its present form, then you say you're opposing throwing a million children out in the cold. If you oppose Medicare cuts, now that's another thing. That would be popular. You know, I'm not certain that the American public yet knows what it wants to do. I think it wants to balance the budget, wants to cut the deficits, but not my program. not Medicare cuts if you're the elderly, not farm subsidies if you're the farmers. I think there's still a dichotomy out in the country as to what they want to do.
Well, that's probably true. Now, I asked Senator Dole while he was here, if elected president, would he appoint General Powell to something? And if so, what? He said yes, but he didn't know what. Maybe Secretary of State. What do you think about that?
He may be the vice president at that point. And by the way, there's nothing in the Constitution, I think, that prevents the vice president from having a real job as well. He could be Secretary of State also.
Well, when Powell says he wouldn't run for elective office in '96, he means the vice presidency as well.
Yes, that's what no one matched Lyndon Johnson in his denial that he would accept the vice presidency right up until the moment when he did in 1960.
What's interesting about Colin Powell pulling out of the race is he has not been damaged by it. When Jesse Jackson, after Marion Barry got in trouble here in Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. desperately needed a new mayor, Jesse Jackson thought about it, then decided he didn't want to do that kind of heavy lifting. He took a terrible bashing in the press. People said he's really not serious. When Cuomo decided in '92 not to run, he was regarded as weak-kneed by the national media. That hasn't really happened with Colin Powell. Yes, one well-known columnist in the New York Times took a bit of a pot shot at him, but apart from that, people are saying he's a good man. He was smart enough to know when not to run
That's
for
right.
president.
The first poll results show that 59 or 60% of the public thought he'd done the right thing to withdraw. And I said to myself, what, they didn't really want him? Then I looked at the poll. They thought he did the right thing to withdraw because he was right to care for his own situation and his family life. I think in the future, he's still very much alive. If in the year 2000 or beyond, as Senator Dole says, Senator Dole does believe you can extend these things for a long time. I think if he wants to revisit it and say, yes, I have the passion. Yes, I've figured out what I want to do with the office in a finite sense, I think he could run.
And he could appear at the Republican. I would think the Republicans would want him. Maybe the conservatives will not want him as the keynoter at the Republican convention.
Could I just point out, David, that you are the one person here that got it right. The rest of us thought he was going to run. You said 2 weeks ago he was not going to run. My question to you is, how did you know?
I didn't know. I just figured it out.
I was a skeptic.
You were a skeptic, but we finally got you to sign on, George.
Now, there was, back to politics, there was some voting, a good deal of voting last Tuesday. The Democrats did not do, the Republicans did not do as well as they hoped, as well as it appeared they might. Is the Republican revolution beginning to fade?
Well, in Virginia, it certainly is. I mean, George Allen, the governor, whose father was a famous football coach, as you remember, in the most vitriolic way before the election, talked about the Republicans and pushing their teeth into their soft gums or something. He failed. The General Assembly is still in Democratic hands. And his last 2 years, he's not only going to be a lame duck, but because of the vitriol, he probably is not going to get much through, even if it's just a resolution for motherhood and the flag.
Is there anything to be concluded from that about the Republican resurgence? Is it weakening?
Well, I don't know whether it's just a Virginia case, although there are a couple of other governorships at issue also. It certainly does demonstrate that, notices of the Democratic Party's demise are premature.
Yes, what it means is for the Democrats, been down so long, looks like up to me. They didn't actually make any gains. They actually lost seats in the Virginia legislature, but still.
But they held it.
But it was the case of expectation. People thought they'd do much worse.
Yes, they applied a tourniquet to a gaping wound and called it a victory. The two most important political events last week were another Southern Democratic congressman crossed the aisle. Congressman Parker of Mississippi became a Republican. And much the most important political news last week was Colin Powell said, I am a Republican.
Why did he do that?
That's a momentous development. The Democratic Party has two sort of large blocks, and that's all. African Americans and government employees. And this gives the Republican Party an entree that it has hitherto lacked into one of those blocks.
After he said he wouldn't run, I thought that was the second most interesting thing.
Yes.
That having said he wouldn't run, he could have preserved his options, but he went ahead and declared himself a Republican. Now that's Colin Powell, not Alma Powell. She made it clear that she's not signing on to that, at least not now.
Well, it was never really put to her. She was asked if
it was put to her.
Well, instrumental in talking.
Look at the body language on that lady. You know that she won.
Yeah. I'll give you the last word, Sam. We've got a minute and a half. You want to dwell further on the political fortunes of
Well, I can't answer my own question. If I pose the question, I can't then turn around and answer it about why he became a Republican. But I do think he's still very viable. Senator Dole continues now to be the front runner. I don't see anyone knocking him off. Having said that, of course, that's probably the worst thing that could happen.
Gingrich going to run?
I don't think the speaker's going to run, no.
No, but he is not eager to say he's not going to run. One thing he wants to do is hold Bob Dole's feet to the fire on the Republican contract.
He also likes to torment the media, which is God's work.
There's nothing wrong with that. We love it.
Directly after Colin Powell's press conference is, my negatives are very high. I understand that, but they're not high among those who participate in the Republican nominating electorate. And he also noted, and it's also true, that in 1979 and early 1980, the Carter White House was salivating for a chance to run against Ronald Reagan because the same press was saying Ronald Reagan was too conservative to be elected.
We'll do a lot more next Sunday morning when the Florida straw poll is in.
Our time is up. Thank you all very much. We'll be back with a few words about how government can cut spending the hard way in a moment.
This Week with David Brinkley, brought to you by GE. From power generation to medical systems, we bring good things to life.
This is my amazing GE Profile dishwasher. It's got this computerized brain, which makes it unbelievably smart.
Ah, there you are.
It knows how long to wash your dishes.
Ravioli again.
Because it analyzes how dirty the water is.
Child's play, really.
So it won't waste water, energy, or money while getting your dishes brilliantly clean.
All you need is a brain.
If you're so smart, how come you're doing the dishes?
I hate when she does that.
The GE Profile dishwasher. It's got a mind of its own.
What are you looking at?
This is a document in the digital office where you capture ideas and share them effortlessly. Whether they're on paper or on your screen, this is the space where Xerox works, giving you a simpler way to do good work.
No matter how you try to spoon it out, or squeeze it out, or pour it out, you can never get the fat out of sausage. But now there's breakfast links from Green Giant. They're all vegetable with no cholesterol and 81% less fat than pork sausage. And the taste? They're everything you'd expect from the Giant. Breakfast links and breakfast patties from Green Giant.
Ho, ho, ho.
When you want the flavor, not all the fat.
They were really growing up fast. Too fast. All Kelly talked about was going to high school, and all I could think about was paying for college. Sure, I played around with a few mutual funds, but I was no expert. So I started talking to someone who could help, a broker at Dean Witter.
We must plan for our clients' future as if it were our own.
Funny, kids think their parents always have the right answers. I'm just making sure I do.
We measure success, one investor at a time.
America's Michelle Kwan and Nicole Bobeck meet the world's best, plus the ice dancing competition. It's Sudafed Skate America International, today on ABC.
Monday, a government shutdown. That'll save some money, right? Nope. So how much will it cost? It's your money on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Finally, it appears now they actually will shut down the federal government briefly next week, probably for a day or two or so. The longest it's ever been shut down was 3 days, and that was on one of our 3-day holidays when the government was closed down anyway. Now, with both parties trying to protect their behinds and make some political points by forcing the other party to cave in, we might see an unexpected benefit. With government running into debt by several $1 million an hour during a shutdown, it cannot spend money and cannot borrow any. It may not be the right way to save money, but it's the one way that works. For all of us here at ABC News, until next week, thank you.
For more information about This Week with David Brinkley on America Online, call 1-800-772-4222. For transcripts, call 1-800-ALL-NEWS.
Through 6 dealerships, all on one street, McLaughlin Boulevard. If you don't come see me today, I can't save you any money.